you record. Awesome.
Okay. What do I do? Do I just like send this to you after, or like how's that work?
Yeah, it should
Okay.
save and then you can send it after. As long
Okay,
as someone's
cool.
recording it.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with it. I just don't want to fuck it up. But
Hello, everybody.
hi everyone.
All right. So thank you guys for attending. Please, if I'm gonna ask you guys if you have any questions, please refrain until the end of the demo, or whenever Jordan has time, to answer questions. But yeah, now if you want to go ahead and get started, you can take it away.
Sure. Honestly, I mean, y'all do whatever, but like I don't mind answering questions while I work if we want to do that. If we just have want to kind
Yeah.
of have this be like a very cash, like I'm drawing and then people are kind of asking questions and I'm like chatting through it. I think that
Absolutely,
would be
whatever
like
works.
a chill vibe.
Absolutely, whatever
But
works
hold
best
on.
for you. I just don't want to have like people talking over you if you're saying something important.
Oh, well, like that's the thing. Like I need people to like give me questions because I'm like nothing I say is important or smart. Like I'm gonna be an idiot up here. Um,
I
Let me
believe in
get
you.
chat
You got
open.
this.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't if people want to like oh wait, how do I like how does chat work? That's the stupidest question imaginable. But like if people chat, is it in our specific
Yes. So it
thing?
should just show up for this panel. So anyone who like talks in chat is talking to you or to us.
Okay, cool. Um, I see a bubble from Cameron. Also, oh, I know. Hi, Cameron. I know Cameron. Hello. Um, yeah, can we see my screen? It's just like we see a design. We see.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. Um, yes, I started working on this like a couple days ago to have something to present because if I started at zero, I think I would die. There's no way. So I prepared a little something. And like I'm just on different stages of it because an hour is not a lot of time for a background design. These usually take a lot of work. So um, I figure I will work on different sections because different parts of this are kind of at different stages, um, which is not normally how I work. But I think for the sake of like visually showing you guys things, this is like more beneficial. Um, so yeah. Um, how can I start? I guess for some of this, I'm on like what I would consider like the second pass, and I will kind of show you. Um, like this was my initial. Well, this was my initial. This was like the thumbnail that I drew, like very sloppy, very messy. Um, and I usually do that like really small, like a little window like that. And then it's like I'm scribbling and what I want to do and like figuring out the big shapes in a composition sense. Um, because if I this is like just for me, but like if I go into a piece trying to if I'm worrying about too many things at once, it I think takes away from the appeal and the design of a piece. Like I can't start a piece and like be setting up like perspective grids and like be doing like the first sketches while also like making sure everything is like right and correct. Like I think it takes away from some of like the initial organic processes of like getting a design to look appealing and like and fun. And like it just like slows you down too much. So I don't do that. I sketch very rough and messy first. So for this piece, I wanted to do like a sort of zoomed out downtowny street view thing. And I sketched it, and then I was like, this is good enough. And then I threw in where I kind of thought my horizon line would be, and like where my perspective grid would kind of be to like lock everything in. And then I did my first pass, which was this. So when I do a first pass, or like I'm using those terms kind of loosely, but like this is like I'm using a hard round brush and I'm shift clicking all of my lines. So everything is really straight and really stiff. Um, sorry, hold on. Everything is very straight and very stiff, but it's like structurally sound. Like everything, all of these lines are correct with my perspective. Um, so everything looks correct and nothing is wonky. And this is like the stage of me establishing sort of like what the overall vibe of this place is going to be, and like putting down like the legwork for like what the design and like what the details for these specific areas um will look like. And also while I'm doing this, like I will like always have um reference open while I'm doing it. I'm a huge Pinterest girl. I love Pinterest. And I like even right now, like I'm just looking at a giant board of like cutesy and old buildings that I'm like in a mental sense like pulling from um, inspiration, which is always important. Nothing wrong with using reference. Everyone needs to use like there's only so many things in my brain, like, and random arbitrary buildings only fill up a little bit of it. Maybe more than the average person, but still, I'm only human. So um, yeah, after I do a pass like that, then I'll bring down the opacity, which is where I am right now. And I'll usually change it to a different color so it's like easier to read. And then um, I'll start on like the second pass, basically. And I think this is kind of just like how I default to doing design work. Because I just want something easy, I think, that I'm like used to. But like um I think this is like a pretty standard like contemporary adult animation sort of look with like very structurally sound um perspective and like kind of full of detail and stuff like that. But I think it's important to like lay down the first pass, which is like really rigid and structurally sound, and like leaving as little questions as possible to when you get to this step, because this step is like where you sort of bring back the organicness and like the charm of the piece. So I for a bit now, I've been working with, okay, I think this is a Kyle brush, Kyle Web, which is like all the brushes are included in Photoshop, I think. And it's called Rough Inker. And I'm working on I think this canvas is like a 2K canvas. It's like the background dimensions and then I double them, which is pretty standard. Sometimes it's 4K, but I didn't do that because I was scared that Zoom wouldn't like wouldn't like that. Um, but this is a 2 pixel brush, um, which is quite thin, especially compared to like what we have, what I was roughing it before. Like it's like much different. Um, but I think it gives it like a nice charm, especially if you're packing in detail. And at this stage as well, like I'm really trying to not shift click and pull straight lines because they just look too stiff. Um, And I think a lot of design, background design work in like a contemporary sense has a bit of that jankiness, that like wobble that's like in here, like none of this is straight. Um, but when you like look at it as like a whole, like it like looks nice. There's like a bit of charm, and like organicness, even though like I'm doing this on like in Photoshop, like on a Cintiq. Um, so that's kind of like my thought process, I guess, to like how I get to like a place like this. Um, Let me see. I think I'm gonna do this building in the very front here. Um, I kind of roughed out where I wanted these like sort of like wood paneling on this building to be in the foreground and to like block some of the scene just to like give more depth in the space. Because I thought that like looked interesting. So I'm going to hold on, I have some, yeah, okay. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna kind of fiddle around on that. And you'll kind of see what I'm saying, like in terms of like organic shapes and um, loosening up a piece, I think, as I go. Because this is like wood and it's wood grain and like maybe it's old wood and it hasn't been fixed in a while and it rains here. So it's like warping and all sorts of stuff that I get to make up. So,
Oh,
oh, thank
we have
you.
a question in chat. Yeah.
I say I have it pulled up and we're good. I have it, but thank you. Um, This looks great so far. How do you decide on where the horizon line should be, especially for outside environments? Um, what a good question that really does not have an exact answer. I think that's why it's important to, oh, I don't like how it looks. Um, it's important to do like these like early sketchy stages like I was showing with like thumbnails and stuff. Um, because the idea of like your horizon line will always kind of fall where like your eyesight falls in a piece. And unless that's like really skewed up or down, like it's usually somewhere in the middle. Um, but past like, hold on, me having like a rough thumbnail like this. This is something I drew, and then it's less about like, oh, where should like the horizon line, and like where should the perspective points go? Like where's like the correct area for them? Because there's like no correct area. Um, it is more so a little arbitrary where I put like I'm just like putting them wherever. Um, in the sense of like I get to decide what the perspective should look like and how much warping and stuff I want. So like this is a 2 point perspective piece, and I have my horizontal horizon line sitting kind of in the middle, pushing lower. Um, and I have one vanishing point off to here. And I'm kind of using these paths instead of like making grids to like show that. I have just kind of found this is like easier for me to like do instead of the grid thing. But there's like a million ways of doing perspective stuff in Photoshop, and all of it is very easy to like Google. But I can also talk about it. But um, yeah, so like this perspective point is closer, so the perspective pulling back is like more intense, and like you can even see like my perspective that I settled with doesn't super match my rough even. Um, but it was like close enough that I just didn't care. And I knew that the changes would look fine as soon as I like um really hammered down on like what I wanted it to look like. I think I like tweaked, like physically grabbed um the sum at one point and like moved it. to like play around with how much I wanted like distortion on it. Um, and I think this is kind of just like, hold on, sorry. This is kind of just like where I settled on it that I liked. So beyond that, yeah, like setting perspective is kind of like up to you on how you want it to look, because that is, you can see like visually the difference between like my first route, which is here, and then what the next pass looked like when I did perspective. So like they are different, but like the vibe is still there, and like my thumbnail in that initial sketch helped me to get here where everything was kind of locked down and tighter. Um, yeah. Okay, back to this guy. And for this, like since it's so close, oh, some moving guys look like handy. Yeah, I used to, I don't remember when I started doing this. It's been a couple years, but I used to do like I don't remember. It's like you use the shape tool and you make a shape that has like 100 points or something. It's like the YouTube tutorial that I feel like everyone has seen. Um, but I didn't like how non-manipulatable that was, because I always felt like I had like I wanted more information. Um, and then I stumbled onto like using the path maker tool. And I like this because you can put it off of the canvas in a way that I hadn't found previously. Like I have like access to like put it all the way over here, which is helps my brain. I don't know. I like doing it like this. And then these are like, if you hold control, like they're manipulatable points and I can kind of drag them around. But this is just um the line tool set to path with like a 0 pixel line. And then they just kind of stay as these like floaty, um, okay, but hold on. Floaty blue lines. It's a little finicky. Like it's like like there's a learning curve. And sometimes they still give me a headache, but I like doing it like that. So that's how I do it. But it's not necessary in any sense. Whatever works for you and makes it look good works for you. There's so much just like it's all vibe based. I don't know. How do you get really good at perspective like this? Have you ever used to on top of a perspective? Um, I have a couple times, but that's something I need to work on is I'm very bad at 3D. I I like want to, sorry, I'm like trying to turn my, there we go. Um, I want to learn 3D so bad because I know a lot of people and a lot of friends that work in design that utilize like Blender um, and stuff like that to help with their, is that look good? Yeah. To help with their like workflow, which is like, I don't know. God, I wish I could do that. Because it really is helpful, especially I was on a dude, he's so fun. Oh my God. Well, Helen, I wish I was you because 3D is not fun to me, but I sure love that for you. Um, I have used SketchUp before, and SketchUp is a pretty primitive um, design process that you can just use online as well. Like there's like a website for SketchUp or yeah, I think it's called SketchUp. Yes, SketchUp. Um, and there's like tools in that, and it's like completely in browser. And I have used that before um, in design work to help me lay out stuff. Um, oh, someone said they use Minecraft. That's crazy. Oh my God, good for you. I would never think to do that. Oh my God, your brain. That's insane. Um, you're a monster. No, that's cool. Um, yeah, I think it's easy. Okay, well, maybe I'll download Minecraft to try this sometime. Oh my God. I think not using 3D, which is maybe uh, a downfall of mine, just means that I have done a lot of um, practice on. Um, yeah, it's just like it takes a lot of practice and a lot of drawing um, to kind of get the perspective side of things down um, in a 2D sense. And I mean, again, a huge help of that is sort of learning and understanding how like perspective works, which sounds it's like a silly sentence to say, but like perspective is really hard. Um, and I feel like I am still faking it most of the time. Um, where I do stuff and like it ends up looking good, but like it's hard. It doesn't feel correct. Which yeah, again, it's just a practice thing, I think, and grids really help um with locking perspective and stuff down. And it just is like practice and like not feeling bad about making bad art, um, which is like incredible words of wisdom that I still don't adhere to. Uh, but yeah, like everyone should be making bad art and like failing, and like that's like cool. It's like cool to do bad, because that's the only way you can do good. It's oh yeah, no. Girl, are you kidding? I like I don't know why um like this is great and I'm glad that I'm here and doing this. Um hold on. So, like yeah, structure wise I feel like this looks fine. Um I might mess up some of this a little more because I think it's fun to have it like super weathered. Um but after this I'm gonna I think just add a little wood grain into it. Um Yeah, like, these are like too perfect up here. Um, and okay, now pull these because they're above the horizon line. It's fun to see the depth in that. Um, but yeah, like this like past week or so, how did that look? I was kind of like, oh God, why did I agree to do a demo? Um, I'm gonna die because like the idea of like having people sit around and watch me draw is like so stressful to me. Um, I think me and like many other people kind of sit in like a little solitude cave, um, doing art. So then like having someone like metaphorically stand over your shoulder, um, is like really nerve-wracking. So I went into this being like, I'm very stressed out. Um, so yeah, I think that happens. Um, a lot. Sorry, I'm trying to like maybe that's the picture. Okay. Like that. Sure. Um, yeah. Everyone, everywhere, always is dealing with imposter syndrome, and nobody thinks they're good ever, unfortunately. It's every person I've ever encountered that works in animation, um, gets really embarrassed when you compliment their work because no one thinks that they're good. And that's just the life of an artist. Um, oh, that feels like too much now. Mm, yeah. Um, Someone asked what brushes I use. Um, yes, what brushes I use. Um, if I'm doing design, I'm not a brushes girl. I'm like a monster. I think especially with design work, it like doesn't matter. Um, it just depends on the vibe. The one I'm using right now is I in Photoshop, like Kyle Webster's brushes are included in Photoshop CC. I think that's like how that works still. Um, and I'm using one called a rough inker is what I'm using. And I have it set to a really small um size. This is a 2 pixel brush. Um, and I'm pretty sure I went in and tweaked um where does that happen? And layer properties. Can we like see all these little menus? Or like can we okay, cool. Um, because and again it depends on the show and the style and stuff like that, but I hate um pen pressure. I hate when brushes have pen pressure. Um, it's like really stressful, and I think it makes designing and drawing buildings and stuff harder. Um, in a way that I just don't need in my life. And I'd say a lot of contemporary animation and design work doesn't have line weight in the backgrounds. So I don't remember where you just kind of mess around with these. Maybe it's shape dynamics. Um, and like I like turned off um the like opacity or not the opacity, sorry, my brain. The pressure sensitivity. So it's like this is just anywhere I click, it's like a solid line and there's no tapering um on it, which is I think just also kind of a stylistic thing. I like the way it looks, like a really tiny line and really needling in details. Um, I think it is fun. And I don't know, a lot of shows kind of look like this. So, but obviously, like anything, there's a million exceptions to everything that I'm saying. So take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, that's what I'm using. Um, Sometimes if I do, oh, I need this. Um, like when I grayscale stuff, which is like also like a part of um design work, it's like laying out the flats for what like the painters will reference for color and lighting. Um, like I'll paint bucket, I'll use the hard round with pressure size. Like it's like literally nothing fancy. Um, I'll use an airbrush for like lighting, simulating lighting, and like getting things like soft and smooth. Um, but yeah, I like literally don't use anything fancy, and I think a lot of people don't use like a million brushes or like fancy things. It's just like not um necessary or required unless the show is like really stylized. But even then, like that feels more like on the paint side of things where that comes into play. Like you get like grain and like brush texture and all that sort of stuff. That's like not really um that's not my job. So I don't have to worry about that. And right now I'm just kind of like, I don't know, I sketched out wood grain earlier and it looks fine. So I'm just kind of going with that. Actually, I don't like this big circle. It looks weird. Oh, it's better. Maybe on this piece where we see the wood more, I'll like follow the contours of it so that it looks like it's like split and we see like the striations on the plank. Because this is like really close in the foreground, so like I think we would see those details. Um, yeah, that looks cool. I like that. And then same here, like same here, just kind of following the contours that I like established with like the cut of this and going with it to make it look like it's like fracturing. That's nice. Um, Learning how to draw with a non-tapered lens is a skill to me. Oh, well, learn the skill. I don't know. Or don't. If you're like great with like a um taper, then just dive into that. I am not, so I don't do it unless it's like asked of me. But depends. When I was on Rugrats, all of my design work, which that was also a little different because it was a CG show. So most of my design work was based on like providing information to modelers and stuff so that my work could be translated to 3D. Um, but like the brushes I use, like literally anything that I use, like did not matter. Like I asked going into it, like if they had like presets and they just were like straight up no. They're like, we don't have like I was like, is there like a brush set, like a sort of like Photoshop file I should be going off of? And like my lead was like, no, just do whatever. And I was like, okay. So I just used like the same brush that I use for everything, um, which was fine. So um, like that. Yeah. And a lot of this is like I get really focused and like zoom in too far. And I think it's important to like zoom out and like really look at um how a design is looking like as a whole. Because it's easy to get lost in like the details. Um, I think like some of this is like a little too much grain and it's getting busy. So I'm gonna remove some of it and maybe play with like having smaller shapes and more open space. Um, just to give some variety. This is like a very busy um, foreground element, which is cool because like we can like put details and stuff in it. But I think it's like a fine line to walk. I'll do this here too. I'll just like taper it out. Yeah. most productions like that where they're not as specific tools wise for background art. When it comes to like a 3D CG pipeline, yes, they don't really care because the work you're making is not technically seeing the screen. It's not the final product. It's being passed along in a pipeline. For 2D design, um, for a 2D design, the tools are very important because everything needs to be cohesive. So on like a traditional, like a Rick and Morty, like a Owl House or whatever, that's when they're like, here's your brush. It's this brush. It's a, 3-pixel brush. This is how you do it. If you're drawing foliage, you use this brush instead. Um, that all of that is like very specific and it has to be because you have like 10 plus background artists working on a show and everyone has to like come together to make the pieces look cohesive. um, so that is important in that regard, also because like when you're designing for like a 2D show, um, you're designing the final product, so like it needs to be tighter. Don't listen to podcasts or anything while I work. Yeah, like all the time. I like having silence is like crazy. Um, I can't do that. And even now it's like I'm talking so much to like fill the air because like if it's quiet, I'm like, what's happening? Um, I listen to music mostly. I'm a big music person. My Spotify raps are always crazy. Um, like the hours I log in are like insane music wise. But sometimes I listen to podcasts. I've been getting into audiobooks recently, um, which is like hurts my brain a little bit because I'll have to be so focused, but it's cool to like do something different. Um, okay, I like how this looks in the front. It's like fun and wonky. Um, but I do need to tweak some of these connecting lines because I designed the other part first and I didn't know how much there would be on it. So I'm just gonna clean up the edges. Like that. Okay. I drew this bench too early. I realize that now. So I need to finish it, which is fine. You guys can watch me finish it. Um, yeah, so this is something I am going to like pull my perspective points into so that I get a better vibe of where I'm drawing. So like I'm adjusting these points to match where my line needs to go. And it's like every face, like these are all just like squares and boxes. So it's like every face of this box um, that is like facing this way. This one, this one, this one is all going to the same perspective point. I think that's an easy way of looking at it, because then you have like smaller details like in here, and it's like, well, the same applies to it because like this is like also part of the background. They're going this way, and then all the walls that are going this way pull to my perspective point on the left. Yes, which like if you look closely, like that also applies to like, hold on, let me get rid of those. So like these windowsills, like, and the inner lip that we see of them, like this is technically a part of a wall that is going that way. So it's like I'm going to use like this perspective point to like pull from that and to know where that goes, like that angle. And then this inner part is going that way. So then, in a similar sense, oh no, I'm going to pull from this perspective point to get that line. And then it all comes together. But I'm going to go back to this bench. And here's the bench, which is going to cut off anyway. So it's like, I've already done most of the work. It's going to be hidden behind this building in the foreground, but I do need to just like make sure everything is consistent with what I've already done. I think it's going to finish all the way there. Yeah, I am going to move. I drew this like too early. I see that now. And it's not centered with where I really want the bench. So I'm going to just remove that and then redo it. Go to music. When doing backgrounds, do you have the brush stay the same size, or do objects in the background have thinner lines and vice versa? That, excuse me, that is also dependent on the show style. And different productions do different things for that. And like that's something that you can very easily see if you're like looking at work online and like different shows. Because some shows, yes, like if something is like in the very front foreground, it might be like the middle ground is a 3-point, and then something in the far background is a 2-point, and then something in the foreground is like a 7-point. So then it's like instead of like this thin line that I have, it's something thicker like this. And then that's gonna pull more visual attention to it to make it seem like it's closer. There's no like right or wrong answer to any of that. And this is a personal piece, so I'm just kind of doing whatever. And I don't know. It's sometimes easier just to do it everything the same width. And I think it sort of lends to like not like chaos, but like there's a messiness, I think, when everything is like a very similar thin width that I think is fun in background designs. And then I can establish foreground differences with tone when I do like tone, for like finishing the layout piece, which is typically what I do. But there are some shows that really utilize line variation. Yeah, it just depends. Honestly, I do feel like this foreground piece is so close that I probably should have bumped it up like a pixel or two. But I don't really want to do that. Yeah, well, actually, hold on. I could show a fun trick. Just to try. So let's look at this together.
Just so you're aware of time, you do have 15 minutes. Just you're fine. I just want to let you know.
Okay. I mean, I was not going to finish this. There's no way. So if this is helping people just like watching me draw, then cool. But if people want to see me like jump to this other building, I can just do that instead. Yeah, screw the line thing. Sorry to people who want to see me do a Photoshop thing. Or I don't know, if you want me to do it, I can do it. But I was just gonna expand the path and make the foreground thicker, but it's like not that exciting. Everything to do. Maybe I'll just finish this instead. We want to see it. Savannah wants to see it. Okay, so okay. I'll do it. I'm gonna just make an additional selection of this. But so like I'm selecting the lines that I have the foreground on, which is this one here, and I'm control selecting on the thumbnail. So now this is like an active selection. And this isn't like I've done this sometimes, but like it makes the lines look a bit weird sometimes. So I might just, if I wanted to make this bigger, I might just redraw it in general. But if you go to select and then modify and expand, you can expand the selection, which right now is just the pixels, which is a 2-pixel line. And if I expand it by 2, it'll be 4-pixel line. Let's expand it by 1 instead. Now the selection has slightly expanded. And then I'm going to go to edit and then stroke. Oh, I think I'm actually doing an extra step, but it's fine. Maybe I'll fill it instead. Fill with foreground color. And then that has just filled it in. And now it's like slightly thicker. But it's lost some of that fun like graininess that I have in this line. So I don't love how that looks. So I'm not going to do it. But yes, I've done similar things before in different drawings. But I'm going to keep it like this. I guess I could also do the edit stroke with the selection intact. And I'm on a different layer because I don't want to mess up my initial layer. And then that also did the same thing. So it just depends. I think the line art I did is too busy to have it be that thick. So I'm going to avoid it, but maybe at a different time I'll revisit and see if I want to change it in any way. So this is like pretty close to this side. So I'm just drawing these slats in here. I'm going to make sure that it lines up with the other leg where it should sit. And for this, I am shift clicking and pulling a straight line because this detail is so small that who cares? It's so tiny and I don't feel like putting in the extra work. Work smarter, not harder. Yeah, I'm into that. Also, I'm flipping the canvas a lot because it's good to see your designs from a different view sometimes. Because you'll get like really used to details if you look at it in one specific way. And for that, I've just, I think, tweaked a keyboard shortcut. I think I've done this for years, and I just make it Control F, so that's like how it flips. Because I think Control F used to be like find like the search option in Photoshop, but like who is using the search option in Photoshop? And yeah, I'll start doing lines on this building. I don't remember what this was supposed to be, like a grocery store or something. But making sure everything is separate, easily adjustable. So like all the lines here are on one thing, all the lines in the foreground are on one thing. That's like really important for making edits, especially in like a design workflow when you are constantly doing revisions and stuff like that. Even like typically like I guess this piece doesn't super matter because this is like literally a building in front of it and it won't move, but say that like I drew like a plant or like something smaller in front of that, it would probably be better for me if I fully drew this building as if it was not blocked by something. And like drew all the details for it and then drew this in front of it and not erasing because we never want to erase, but doing a layer mask instead, which is this little guy down here. You can click it like that. And if you just use like an eraser and the pen, like I am erasing this, but not actually, this is not a destructive process because you can right click and disable and it's all still there. All the material, all the information is still there. But it's like toggleable, which is very important. like if you learn one thing from this, please learn how to do a layer mask. Um, they are very important. Because if you erase something and then you do like a revision, like say like you get like a note where they're like, oh, we don't want I don't know, the bench in there, and then you're like, okay, and then you erase it, and then like the next day they're like, actually, we love the bench, so just put the bench back in. And then if you erase it, you're like, oh my God, I have to redraw all of that. Um, and that's just not good. That's not helping anybody. So don't make your life harder. And now I'm just kind of like fleshing out um, the structure of this building, keeping a loose and wonky line. I love a loose and wonky line. Um, I kind of thought I would maybe do like a little overhang and like a counter here, and then have like these sort of benches with like produce and stuff in them um, going into the store. So that's what I'm kind of doing. Obviously this is like very stiff and rigid, so I need to like make that look looser and like canvasy. So that's what I'm gonna work on right now. Breaking lines occasionally, I think, to at least inner lines to show that there's like less structure. Um, like here, just to sort of suggest where like there's seams or like tension on something. Um, okay, I'm gonna make this, I'm gonna do stripes on this. That seems fun. I should have planned this earlier in my sketch, but that's okay. So I'm gonna just roughly make sure that these are even. And that looks good. And then I'm just gonna follow this outer line, which I established there's like a bit of like a rib. Um, like it's like, not puckering, but like maybe the wind is blowing or like it's old or something. Um, so I'm just gonna follow that. Maybe with this. That. And this is like maybe a tad too sketchy. Yeah, hold on. Looking at a different angle, I don't like how it's sitting because this is so billowing out here. So I might follow this instead to like really round out that form. Yeah, I like that more. It makes it look like it has more depth. Like that. I'm gonna follow that, and then I'll make a tweak in the fabric after, which I think is easier. Make this a little bigger. The undo tool is my best friend. If there was like a counter on how many times I hit undo it in a design, it would be scary. Actually, I don't want to know that information because it'd be crazy. Like, I don't think I use the eraser. I use eraser sometimes, but hold on, whoopsie. Um, I just, I don't know, I undo a lot instead. It feels quicker. And for some reason, doing the arc this way feels nicer on my hand, so I'm gonna do it this way instead. Again, work smarter. There'll be a few more in here. This, and maybe this is when we start to like wonk it up a little bit. And then I can like say pull a seam like that in here and then tweak where these stripes are sitting so they're like offset. And it looks like, well, I actually don't like that. Hold on. Not plug from the outside, but like about that. And do a very subtle, like, yeah, more like that. This feels too rigid. Around the corner on that. Yeah, my time is almost over, but I will continue drawing until that happens. So maybe I'll do a couple windows. Regardless, thank you everyone for being here
Does
and
anyone
watching me
have any
draw.
questions? Does anyone have any questions? I think now would be a good time to ask any final questions. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this tutorial. It was
Oh
really
my God,
awesome.
of
Thank you.
course. I hope people got something out of that. At the very least, I think we all had a good time just hanging out. Cool.
Yeah,
Thank you,
absolutely.
everybody.
Thank you. And don't forget that the recording.
Yeah, okay. So like how do I do that's like I just hit like stop sharing and then like that should like save onto my computer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
I wish I could help more. I'm not sure where
You're
exactly.
fine.
If anyone can help, I would appreciate it, but I know that it saves some on your computer.
Okay. I'm sure I'm overreacting. We're good. Pause recording, stop recording. I see it. Okay. Yeah, we're good.
Perfect. Well, oh, it still says recording.